Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for the third and final part of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and knock this out. All right, first question. When you are cutting, is it better to hold on to more water by adding a lot of sodium? Would it help strength? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You got to watch the silly bodybuilder stuff of running sodium really, really low so that you can drop as much water weight as possible. You get into this whole point of talking to people about that. Look, are you trying to peak for some sort of event, or are you trying to actually change your body composition? Making sure that you get very significant amounts of sodium, potassium, and magnesium. And I don't mean by buying a stupid ass supplement. I mean by actually tracking what's in your food and again, even salting your food, getting more food with salt in it is a tremendously good idea. You need all those electrolytes to fuel your training, to help with muscle fullness, and it will actually help you hold on to muscle mass better. Because you're keeping your muscles well hydrated with all of this, it can affect their muscle protein synthesis. It will affect your performance. Even holding the extra water in your muscles will burn more calories with everything that you do, right? It'll increase your metabolism. So you want to be retaining water in your muscle tissue when you're trying to lose body fat if your goal is to hold on to as much muscle as possible and to burn as much fat as possible on the same amount of food intake, right? It just makes sense. And people who don't grasp that are too caught up in their view of aesthetics for the moment versus actually reaching their goals. And I mean, there are leading experts, and I hate to throw the good doctor out there because you guys know it's my arch nemesis, the evil Dr. Lay Norton. He even has his guys sodium load before they step on a bodybuilding stage. So this whole concept of low sodium for extremely active people, especially in a caloric deficit, is dangerous and borderline mentally handicapped. It's probably one of the stupidest things you could do. You need to go the other direction. Sodium, salt load is your friend for performance. And that doesn't matter whether you're bulking or cutting. But when cutting, I think it starts to become even more critical. All right, next question. What would a good intensity percentage be for a 5x5? Prilepin's chart says about 70% or slightly below, but that sounds very light for strength and size. Well, if you're taking short breaks, that's about right. If you're trying to maximize performance, though, that's basically your starting point. You got to remember, a lot of Prilepin's charts based on Olympic lifting, which is a different animal. For your big lifts, I think that's a good starting point. I have people start around 70% on my novice 5x5, but you are adding weight every single session from there. But here's the problem we run into. We start approaching numbers like 80%. You start hitting 80%, and you're damn well going to need some big breaks if you're going to do 5 sets of 5. I'm going to tell you right now, if you were at truly something like 80% and you think you're going to take 2 minutes or something between sets of 5, you are not going to get 5 sets of 5. You start going to intensities that high with sets of 5, you're going to need very long breaks. So again, you've got to look at it as what are you doing with it? And don't get caught up in percentages as fixed numbers. These are dynamic things. Like percentages oftentimes represent starting points, right? They represent starting points. Like on my linear periodization program, I have my intermediate one. People are like, I don't know. I mean, your percentages start here, but then later on, it looks like it would be hard to hit those sets with those percentages. It's like, well, yeah, because you're 8 weeks into the program, you're 9 weeks into the program. Hopefully, you're stronger than where you started. That's a percentage based on your starting numbers. You got to remember, these are usually starting numbers that you're working with on any program. You're going to actually add weight over time. You're going to have progressive overload. So you need to look at these percentages from that perspective, as oftentimes they are starting points in a training program. And that would include the 70% for a 5x5. All right, next question. I'm not sure if you have dealt with the issues regarding alternative grip. It's called mixed grip. I have seen some cases the tendon on supinated grip hand gets teared and heard that it can cause the imbalances several times. What do you think of it? That is the reason why I'm still stubborn to use hook grip, even if it feels painful as hell. Looking forward to watching a video of you talking about it soon. I've covered this multiple times. I hook grip for a reason. I have had that injury. I have damaged a bicep. I've injured my bicep before doing the mixed grip on the supinated hand. So I've torn a bicep doing this. I personally do the hook grip myself, and so you're standing here saying, okay, you're fighting through the pain, you're learning to hook grip. I think that's a very good idea. That's what I have personally been doing. That's what I recommend, and I think that is the best solution to this problem. And since you're doing it hopefully fairly early in your training, it's not going to be as big of a problem as if you wait 20 years to do it, like I did. So no, I think I think you're on the right track. I think the hook grip is a good solution. I would encourage you to continue to use the hook grip and to learn to deal with it, and it will get less painful with time. Keep practicing it, keep working on it. I think it is the way to go with this. So I think you're doing the correct thing. Do the hook grip. All right, next question. I've noticed doing higher reps on the pause bench press, 5 to 10 reps, it gets more difficult to keep the pause on your chest for the same pause duration. As long as the bar stops for a brief second on your chest, is it a valid rep, or should all the pauses be the same length? No, I mean, anytime you bring it to a complete stop, you've come to a complete stop, that's a pause rep, right? Longer pauses are a little bit different. Are you right that it becomes more difficult? Yes, absolutely. It becomes absolutely more difficult the further you get into a set to hold that pause, particularly if you're holding more than about a half second. But that's a beneficial thing. Now, is it still a true pause rep if you're shortening the pauses later into the set? Yes, but you're also getting more fatigued. You're getting more fatigued. But if you're shortening the pauses because it's getting harder, what you also need to factor in is, are you doing yourself any favors from developing your strength and power out of the bottom, right? Because if you're weak on the bench press, where are you weak at? As a raw bencher, you don't have lockout problems. I agree with Paul Carter on that. He's, again, a legit 500-pound raw bencher. Coaches a lot of people. I agree with him completely on that. You need to always get stronger off the chest. Always stronger off the chest. And for you guys who are trying to reach maximum jactitude, that's what builds your pecs. That builds your chest up better than anything you could be doing. So the question I would ask is it really beneficial for you to start trying to shorten the pauses down? I don't know that it is. Now, is that fine if you're trying to reach a target number of reps and you know that you're a little bit weak to do it still? Probably. Is it still acceptable? Sure, because as long as you're doing the pause reps, you're getting the benefit. But might I give you an alternative? Here's what I do. If you notice, a lot of times on my last rep, I pause longer. Do you know why? Because I know that I've turned that into my rep max. I know I've brought the RPE up by doing that. Because what I try to do when I get to the last rep, if the one before it was challenging, and I know that I'm probably within one rep of failure, I go ahead and I take a longer pause. I want that last rep to be harder so that I hit all of those upper threshold fibers, and I turn it into roughly a limit set, right? That's what I personally like to do, and I feel that works well for me. And again, you guys are looking at my DEXA scans. At this point, I think it's fair to say I'm not lacking in size in my upper body. I'm not lacking in size in my chest and back and things. So, I think I have it right on this. All right, next question. Hey, Jason, I've recently noticed that a lot of the bars in my gym are bent. You've talked in the past about rack pulls are damaging to a bar, but I haven't seen anyone doing heavy rack pulls. I have, however, been seeing a lot of people doing pin squats. Are pin squats just as damaging to bars as rack pulls? Could this explain all the bent bars? Thanks. Yeah, pin squats are. The only difference is that on a pin squat, no one's doing as much weight as they are on these rack pulls, right? But, I mean, think about it this way. If you are hitting 500 pounds on a barbell onto steel pins, right? You're hitting onto steel pins on the way back down instead of just lifting it off. Of course it's going to damage them. The eccentric on a pin squat hitting the bar damages it over time. In fact, it's not just the bars that get damaged, it damages the rack. Like if you go to some hardcore powerlifting gyms, I've known of one, like I'm talking about the real hardcore black iron gyms where a lot of powerlifters are doing pin squats and all this stuff. You'll notice that I've seen them to where they have to take the bars out of the rack, those safety bars, depending on what style they are, if they're just the bars that run through, and they have to go put a torch on them and re-straighten them back out because they'll start bowing and bending from it also. So not only do the bars get bent and damaged and break, it actually damages the safeties over time. It can bend the hell out of them. So pin squats will do that absolutely. Once the weight starts getting substantial, the bars can get damaged with any weight. I mean, 300 pounds will eventually ruin a bar doing rack pulls and pin squats and everything if you're hitting the safeties, right? That will eventually ruin any bar. That will ruin a $1,000 bar. But you get with the heavy weights and people start doing the pin squats and things, they'll actually damage the safeties on the rack as well. So again, you've got to look at this stuff and say sometimes, are you really getting enough of a benefit from doing some of these things that you really need to destroy the equipment in the gym? That's the question people need to be asking. But no one does it because they're not buying it themselves, so they don't give a shit, right? You start buying your own equipment, you think about these things a lot more. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.